Good evening, this is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Kalamata, Greece on September 9th, 2024. I've just returned from a week-long vacation, one frankly which I very much needed. And in the interim, although my absence was brief, there were of course important and troubling developments in the crisis in West Asia. In particular, I want to focus this evening on a killing that occurred on Friday of last week, September 6th, when an Israeli sniper shot in the head 26-year-old Aysenur Ezgi Eygi. She was a U.S. citizen, and Israel's military murdered her while she was protesting peacefully in the occupied West Bank against Israel's illegal occupation and settlements. When news of the killing broke, U.S. State Department spokesperson Mathew Miller stated, quote, "We are urgently gathering more information about the circumstances of her death. We have no higher priority," he said, "than the safety and security of American citizens." No higher priority. Really? Earlier this year, Israelis murdered two 17-year-old Palestinian Americans in the West Bank. Tawfiq Abdel-Jabbar, a Louisiana native, was shot in January by an off-duty Israeli police officer. Several weeks later, Mohammed Kudur, a high school senior from Florida, was shot in the head by an Israeli gunman. In both cases, the U.S. government decried the killings, but it has yet to launch investigations. No one has been held accountable for either of these murders, and based on prior experience, no one ever will. In April of this year, an Israeli airstrike killed 7 aid workers in the Gaza Strip. The workers included a dual Canadian-American citizen. They were in a convoy leaving a World Central Kitchen warehouse in central Gaza. The dual Canadian-U.S. citizen was 33-year-old Jacob Flickinger. The strike took place despite extensive efforts to coordinate the movements of World Central Kitchen workers with the Israeli offensive forces. The attack also killed 3 British nationals, an Australian, a Polish national, and a Palestinian. The United States, Canada, Poland, and Australia demanded a full investigation, by Israel, of course. In 2022, an Israeli sniper shot and killed Shireen Abu Akleh, an Al Jazeera journalist. She was killed in the Jenin refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. At the time, she was reporting peacefully from the camp. She too was a U.S. citizen. No one has been held accountable for her murder either. On the contrary, Israeli forces continue to desecrate the shrine that Jenin's residents created for Abu Akleh after her death. I saw this for myself when I visited the Jenin refugee camp in March of this year. This is by no means an exhaustive list of Western citizens murdered and maimed by Israel's apartheid regime. There is, for example, the infamous case of Rachel Corrie. In 2003, an Israeli bulldozer crushed Corrie to death as she was peacefully protesting Israel's destruction of Palestinian homes in Gaza. Corrie was a U.S. citizen. She was 23 years old when she was killed. An Israeli army investigation concluded that the soldiers in the bulldozer's armored cab hadn't seen or heard her, and that she, the victim, was responsible for her own death by not moving out of the bulldozer's path. More than 70 members of the U.S. Congress signed on to a resolution calling for an American investigation into Corrie's death, but no independent investigation was undertaken. Today, in the sorry place that we find ourselves, it's difficult to believe that dozens of U.S. congresspersons would even call for that much. Then there was, of course, the Israeli military's deadly attack on the USS Liberty in 1967. Israel's Air Force and Navy killed 34 U.S. naval officers, seamen, Marines, and 1 civilian NSA employee. They also wounded 171 crew members and severely damaged the naval vessel. At the time, the Liberty was in international waters and was not firing upon anyone or anything. Israel, in that case, paid a few $1 million in compensation to the families of those killed and to the wounded survivors, but no Israeli went to jail for the attack on Israel's closest ally. U.S. support for Israel has continued throughout this decades-long period of lawlessness directed at Western citizens. In fact, U.S. military aid to Israel has increased dramatically during the past several decades. One could go on and on about Western citizens murdered or wounded by Israel, but a comprehensive review of Israel's attacks on Westerners would take many hours. Typically, Western governments respond to these attacks on Western citizens by demanding that Israel investigate itself. In what other justice system do the accusers call upon the accused to investigate itself? Inevitably, these self-investigations lead nowhere. By the time Israel's sham investigations are complete, the public usually has stopped paying attention, and Israel gets another free pass, as do the Western politicians who allowed it to escape justice. With respect to the murder last week of Aysenur Ezgi Eygi, the White House now says it has requested that Israel investigate Eygi's killing, and we all know where that self-investigation will lead. In all likelihood, nowhere. The totality of the evidence leads inexorably to one appalling conclusion. The lowest priority for the American government is the safety of its own citizens, at least when it comes to the crimes of Israel. In effect, the US government and other Western states, including Canada, have given Israel a license to kill and maim Western citizens. That is the inexorable conclusion one must come to based upon the totality of the evidence. It's as simple as that. In the coming week, I hope to explore this and other issues with compelling guests, commentators, and analysts, including Gadi Francis, a war correspondent from Lebanon, Elijah Manier, who has also decades of experience in reporting upon wars in the region of West Asia. I'll also be speaking to Professors Radhika Desai and Michael Hudson about the divergence in the economic performance of the Russian Federation and major Western economies. I also plan to speak to my regular guest, Laith Marouf, a geopolitical analyst based in Beirut and the executive director of Free Palestine TV. And as events unfold, we may have more to say and talk about in the days ahead. For now, this is Dimitri Lascaris signing off from Kalamata, Greece on September 9th, 2024.